Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to another session of Android Study Jams. So, um, next slide, please. Yeah, this is session 5 of the prior programming experience track. Today we'll be dealing with the sixth chapter where we'll be learning architecture components. So, today's schedule will be first we'll be learning what a view model is. Then we'll be learning live data and live data observers. Then we'll be incorporating data binding with this view model and live data. And then we'll finally wind up by exploring live data transformations. Today is going to be a really fun session with a lot of focus on software development architectures. So, without any further ado, let's proceed. Next slide, please. Excuse me for a moment. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. There's someone at the door. Yeah, so view model. Okay, so before we get into view model, first let's look into the concept called app architecture. Now, app architecture is a way of designing your app's classes and the relationships between them such that the code is organized and it performs well in particular scenarios and it's very easy to work with. In this session, we will be following Android app architecture guidelines and we will be using Android architecture components. The Android app architecture is similar to the MVVM architectural pattern. Okay, so according to software engineering principles, any software that you create must be organized in a certain way such that you don't have just a bunch of code interacting randomly. So you organize them into classes, packages, and then you segregate them accordingly so that each class has only one specific function. So there is this principle in software engineering called separation of concerns. It is a design principle. Now, what this principle says is that when you have a class, the class must perform uh, functions uh, that are supposed to be dealt only by it. Like, let's say if you have UI class, that UI class must only be used for interacting with the user interface. Let's say it must only handle click events. Like if it clicks, like if a user clicks on a button, it should call the method, it should call the on click for that. Like you should not be writing the code inside the on click inside like the definition for the on click must not be implemented inside the UI class. It must be delegated to some other class. So like a UI class must only be must only be for the purpose of interacting with the users and for no other purpose. So this is called separations of concerns. Separation of concerns. Like if you have like with hundreds and thousands of class, you should not be you should make sure that each class has its own function. You and I mean, the classes, they must not bleed into one another and start confusing. Uh, the functions must not be functions of each and every class must not be confused with another class. So each class must perform its own task. There should not be any mixing up of tasks that would lead to a lot of confusion. And when you get into debugging, it will be a huge headache. So it's advised that you use certain design principles to solve your. 1 second, I'm sorry. Just hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. Mm. Yeah, you must be able to use your the specified design patterns so that you won't have any difficulty while you are debugging your apps. So one such architectural pattern is you have many types of architectural patterns. You have your observer pattern, separator pattern, iterator pattern, decorator pattern, uh, state pattern. You have a lot of patterns, and then there's another. There are famous ones like MVP, MVVM, MVC. You have all these kind of things. Today we'll be dealing with Android specific model of MVVM, that is model, view, and view model. So let's get into the architecture pattern. Now I told three words: model, view, and view model. So view is the class that you will be using to interact with the user interface. So when you it handles all the button clicks, the user input, and suppose any choice in the radio button, all such things will be handled by the view class. Now your model will have all the let's say backend stuff like database and internet connectivity. All that part will be handled by the model. Your view model will act as the interface between your view and your model. So any action that you perform in the view will be sent to the view model. The view model will perform the tasks accordingly by getting data from the model, and it will render it back into the view class. So if you look at the PPT, you can look here. Uh, in the fragment instance, let's say you have a fragment, and in that fragment there is a configuration change that has occurred. So what will happen is this configuration change will talk to the view model, get the required data, and send it back to the uh, newly recreated fragment instance. So this is how your view model works. So in Android, a UI controller is a UI based class such as an activity or a fragment, and a UI controller should only contain logic that handles UI and operating system interactions such as displaying views and capturing user input. It is stressed that you do not put any decision making logic such as logic that determines the text to display into the UI controller. Any decision making logic like changing of the fragments like we saw yesterday, or getting the data, and then all these logic must not be put inside your UI controllers. For that you have to use a separate class for that. This follows the separation of concerns design principle. Now, a view model class, it holds the data to be displayed in a fragment or an activity associated with the base class view model. So, like if you have let's say a student app. Now you'll be creating a student view model app. Now this student view model will inherit the in Android's base class called view model. So a view model can do simple calculations and transformations on data to prepare the data to be displayed by the UI controller. Now in this architecture, the view model is the class that you need to put all your decision making code, not in the UI controller classes. So there is another concept that you need to know called a view model factory. A view model factory is a class that instantiates your view model objects with or without construction parameters. We'll get to that later slowly. So yeah. So for implementing your view model, you will have to let me present. Just give me a moment. Shakti. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So this is the game fragment class. Now that's inheriting your the fragment base class. Let's look at the game view model class. Now your game view model class contains all the logic that is needed to run the game. Look here, you have your variables declared over here. You have your word list, and then you have an init block. Init block is just the constructor for the class, where you have a log message and then two functions that are being called reset list and next word. Now reset list will each and every time it's called, it's going to create a word list of the type mutable list, which has all these values: queen, hospital, basketball, cat, etc. And once this variable is created, you just shuffle the words. Next word will call the uh, next word from this list. That's pretty much it. Now you have something called override fun on cleared. Now what this function does is whenever you change the orientation of your screen, the fragment is going to get destroyed and it's going to be recreated again. So when it's destroyed, you'll have to release all the memory that is taken. So you use this function called on cleared. So you override on cleared and then you call super dot on cleared, and inside if you have any specific code that you need to add, you can add it over here, or you can just use your log messages. And then you have a function called on skip that will reduce the score and call next word, on correct that will increase the score and call next word. Now what the app does is it's called guess the word. I'll show you. Hold on. Yeah, so it's going to show on Word, and then who I mean a person will be holding this app. It's going to show on Word. The other guy is going to act. He has to act out this app. I mean, he has to act out this word so that once the person guesses it correctly, he's going to click got it. If the guess is wrong, he's going to click skip, and end game if he wants to stop playing the game. So you have three buttons: skip, got it, and end game. So in your game fragment, you have a binding variable. You have a view model initialization. We'll get to that slowly. And then this is straightforward stuff. On create view is getting overridden. Here you are implementing the binding object. And once that is done, you are going to call the view model. Okay. So now you are going to call your view models by a specific method called view model provider. Now, what this does is uh, you initialize a variable called view model of the type game view model. You are going to specify that it's late in it. Once the function, I mean, once the view is created, then you uh, call the class view model provider, and then you get this class game view model. That what you're doing here is you're dynamically calling view model, so that each and every time your fragment is created, your view model is assigned. Now if you take this declaration and throw it over here, it's only going to get created once. And once you change the configuration, since the fragment gets destroyed, you won't be able to see the stored values. That's why you will have to call it dynamically over here. And the way to do that is to use a view model provider. That's all. Now, using the binding object, we are calling correct button, skip button, endgame button. We are setting all the click listeners, and we are calling on correct, on skip, and on endgame. Once we are done with that, we are calling two more methods: update score text and update word text, and then we are returning the binding object. Now, when you look at the functions that are called inside the click listeners on correct, on skip, and on endgame, you just have and function call to the view model class. You have view model dot on skip. You don't have any particular logic. When you look at your view model class, when you look at on skip, you have score minus minus and next word. General Android development practice, without any of these view models, without following any architectural patterns, what you'll do is you'll take these two lines of code and you'll put it over here. But if you have to follow the specified guidelines, you will have to create a view model object, throw your code in that. All your decision making code must be present in that, and your UI code must simply call the view model object, so that when you call this method, control gets transferred to this class, this function, and this the code present inside that function gets executed. This is the same for the on correct and on end game also. Look over here. You have a view model object, and then you're calling it. And for game finished, you have the code downstairs. Here you're using your navigation controller that we saw yesterday to navigate between fragments. So update vertex and update score text are just, you are just calling the binding objects, and then you're calling the view model object, and then you're taking the word and the score, and then you're displaying it in the XML file. So yeah, and in your view model class, you have these functions. Look over here. These are the methods for updating the UI. So you're going to call these. Notice that these functions are not private because you will have to call them in this class. So these are not private. So that's it, guys. This is all view model is. What you do is you call your decision making function. You put all your decision making functions inside a view model class, and then you call the required functions in your UI controllers by referencing them using an object. Now, view model factory. We'll get to this. Yeah. So a view mod. Okay. A factory method pattern is a creational design pattern that uses factory methods to create objects. That is, a factory method is just a method that returns an instance of the same class. This is also a specified design pattern that you need to use. Now, what your view model factory does is it's just a fancy way of creating your view model classes dynamically. That's all it does. So this bunch of code, what it does is, it will create your score view model classes dynamically. Now, when you look over here, score fragment, you are going to initialize the view model factory class using the the view model factory class, the the variable that holds this uh, the variable is going to call your view model class using the view model factory class. Inside this factory class, you are creating that, and then you are returning the score view model, the entire class with the uh, constructor. Arguments for the class final score. This it has a parameter called final score. It inherits the view model. We're assigning final score to score. Now this class is created by the view model factory. What do factories do? They create stuff, right? They process stuff, and then they create whatever you want, and then they send it for deployment. So that's exactly what this view model factory does. It takes the view model that you have defined over here. It takes it, it creates it over here, and then it returns it back on. Wait, it look over here. Create, override function create. Now this create function will return a score view model class that you will be using in your UI controller. Once you call the view model factory, you assign your view model object to through your view model provider class. So a provider will take the factory object, and then it will get this class and then store it in your view model. Using this view model, you can use your binding object to take the data from the view model and update it into your UI. Okay, so next slide, please. Shakti. Shakti. Okay, I'll present then. Okay, he's presenting. Cool. Yeah, live data and live data observers. So I mentioned about your software design patterns, right? I told you about decorators, iterators, observers, right? Now, live data and live data observers is the Android implementation of the observer pattern. Now, your observer pattern is a very cool pattern that you will use when data is changing dynamically. Now, let's say you have a class that detects this changes in your stock market. Now, stock market will keep changing very rapidly over the course of a day, and there have been instances where the entire market has crashed overnight. So such rapid dynamic changes, if you have to implement, there is a defined pattern to use, and that pattern is called your observer pattern. What your observer pattern is, you have a class called your observer. You'll have two classes. That is, one class is going to be your subject class, and the other one is going to be your observer class. Now, subject class is the one that is going to undergo rapid changes. So if any event is occurred, this subject class is going to change according to the event. Let's say price of a particular stock, price of the uh, stock of a particular company is increased. Now, because there is a change, your subject is going to get triggered. If it decreases, again it's going to be triggered. So any change, any event, like if there's any change, your subject is going to get triggered, and you'll have a bunch of observers around your Just hold on for a moment. You'll get a better idea if I show it with the presentation. Just hold on. Yeah, Shakti, can you just refresh your slide? Yeah. So there you go. You have a subject that if any event, there's going to be a state change inside your subject, and based on the state change, you'll have a bunch of observers that are that are going to inherit your subject class. Okay. Now, whenever there is a state change in your subject, your I mean, your observer classes are going to be notified. So this is how an observer pattern works. Any change, your observers are going to be notified. So to implement this in Android, we are going to be using live data and live data observers. So let's get into that. So a live data is an observable data holder class that is life cycle aware. Um, For example, you can wrap a live data around the current score in the guess the word app. Let's say, I mean, there is a variable that has your current score, right? Now you can wrap a live data object around this current score. That is, you can make current score as an observable, and your observable is any like observable will be reflected according to the state changes that happen in your subject class. So live data is observable, which means that an observer is notified when the data held by the live data object changes. So if there any change happening, your observable are going to get notified. I mean, your observers are going to get notified. That is, uh, live data is an observable. If there's any change in your live data object, that is your current score. If the current score changes, which is then observable, your observer is going to get notified. So live data is holds data, and it is a wrapper class that can be used with any data type, mutable list, normal list, anything. And your live data is life cycle aware. So when you attach an observer to the live data object, the observer is associated with a life cycle owner. That is another class, usually an activity or a fragment. So a life cycle owner is usually of the type activity or fragment. The live data only updates observers that are in an active life cycle state, such as started or resumed. So if an activity or a fragment is in your start state or your resume state, we saw this yesterday in activity life cycle. So whichever activities are in your start state or resume state, that is, they are live right now, they're running, right? So if there's any change, your live data is going to be updated. So now, yeah, let's look at life cycle owner. Now, fragment views are going to get destroyed whenever a user navigates away from a fragment, even though the fragment itself is not destroyed. So the views inside your fragment, that is your buttons, your text view, your image view, all those are going to get destroyed, even if your fragment is not going to get destroyed. This essentially creates two life cycles, one for the entire fragment and the other for the views that are present inside the fragment. So referring to the fragment's life cycle instead of the fragment's views life cycle can cause very small bugs when you are updating the fragment's view. Therefore, when you're setting up observers that affect the fragments views, you should set up the observers in your onCreateView method, and then you have to pass lifecycle owners to the observers. That is, let's say you have, we looked at your score data. We looked at score, right? Now, what your score should do is you must wrap that score using an observer class. Now, the way to do that is you will call viewModel.score, because score is in the view model, and then you will call a method called .observe. This .observe method, uh, you use this .observe method and you put the initialization of the view model inside that. That is, you call your view lifecycle owner inside your observe method. You create a temporary lambda expression for the observer, and whatever changes that are need to be done, you put it inside the mm, observer class. The new the temporary the lambda expression that you created. And then, yeah, so that's all, guys. This is all about live data and live data observers. You Live data is a observable class. That is, observable means the things that are going to be updated. You take that, and then you take the live data class, and you take a simple data object, and you wrap your live data on your on your simple object, so that it becomes an observable. So if there's any change inside in your variable, it is going to get called. That's all. So data binding with view model and live data. Okay, now this is actually pretty simple. As Until now you have seen your code. What your code does is, you'll have views that are defined in your XML layout. You'll have a UI controller, and you'll have a view model, right? So each and every time there's any change, you'll have to talk to the view model, and then send it back to the you'll talk to the view model, send it, and then you'll send it back to the UI controller, which then populates the view accordingly. So instead of uh, using your UI controller, you can use data binding. We have seen data binding in the previous sessions. Data binding is just a cool way of mentioning variables inside your XML file itself, so that you can simply call that value and update it simply without creating references each and every time. You don't have to call find view by ID and then get the reference of the view, store it in another object, and then call the methods on that object. Instead of doing this, any variables that you'll have to use continuously, you can uh, mention them in your layout file using data binding. Now, once you enable data binding in your app, you can eliminate the UI controller class itself. You can simply call the using the to mention views in your UI controller, you'll use your ID tags, right? Just like that, you'll have IDs for your variables in your layout file also. That is when you use data binding. So you can just call that ID, and then you can simply assign the values to your view model, and then that variable will get adjusted accordingly and will get populated into the view. That's all. mm, that's all about data binding with view model. Now when it comes to live data, um, again simple. Again, you're going to use the data binding only. All the live data objects that you use inside your class, you can add references to them using data binding in your XML file. So that's all. All this entire concept just tells you that You can use data binding with both your view model objects and your live data objects. When you use it with view model objects, you can eliminate the boilerplate code in your UI controller class. You can simply just call the variable directly and then send it back to your view, that is your XML file. And the same thing is applied to live data also. You just create a reference of this inside your XML file using data binding. You call the binding object whenever necessary, and it's going to get updated accordingly. That's all. Next slide. Yeah, live data transformation. Now in the app that you are going to build, you are going to create a timeout, I mean countdown timer. So the person that is going to guess the word shouldn't be guessing for a long time, right? Like there should be a time. If he can't guess by then, he has to move on to the next one. So you will have to transform, I mean, and your countdown, all these timers are going to be live data objects. So we are going to use this method called transformations.map. What transformations.map does is you will have a data binding object inside your XML layout. You're going to take that value and then you're going to put it in your transformations.map object, and then as that and then you're going to uh, open a lambda expression, and you'll be using one inbuilt class called dateutils. For there is a method called format elapsed time that's going to keep decreasing the time. So transformations.map will have the reference to the text view, which is going to be data binded. As the time gets decreased, it's going to be transformed accordingly. Like as each second gets reduced one by one, this is going to be displayed accordingly. It's actually very simple. That's all this is. You'll simply use one method, and then you'll call the object that's going to be counted down, and then it's once you link both of them, the countdown is going to be established properly. That's all. Next slide, please. Hello. Yeah. Yeah, go to the next slide. So that's all for today's session, guys. You can share what you've learned with us using the hashtag Android Study Jams. You can use this hashtag along with hashtag DSC Sastra in all your social medias. You can take the any important events, I mean any highlights of this today's event, and you can share it on social media. So next slide. Yeah, these contains the resources I have. You can see all these resources in the official Android developer site, developer.android.com. If you click on that link, you'll have the other links also. And I have already shared these links to you in the previous sessions, so you can check it out there also. Now, for the next session, it's going to be really interesting because we're going to learn a very key uh, aspects of Android. That is where we're going to deal with databases and recycler views. So let me just give you a small intro. Everybody has WhatsApp, right? Now, WhatsApp, the all the chats that you see are populated in a list. Now, that list is going to be dynamic. Like initially, let's say today is the first day you created your WhatsApp account. When you first created your WhatsApp account, the moment you click on the app, the main activity won't have anything in it. It's going to be empty because you don't have any chats. Now let's say I have done this and I have messaged Shakti. The first chat is going to be displayed. Then I message Karthikeyan. The second chat is going to be displayed. Then I message my mom. Then I message my dad. Now, as I keep on adding the people, it's going to get populated accordingly. And once your screen size limit is reached, you'll have the ability to scroll. So your list is getting populated dynamically, right? Based on your database, like the message you send. You click on a account, another WhatsApp account, and then you're going to send your message. So the view is going to get, I mean, the entire view is going to get updated automatically with list items. So to implement this, we'll be learning a concept called recycler view that is going to use another software engineering pattern called adapter pattern. It's going to be a lot of fun and it's going to be very interesting. So please stay tuned and join us for the next session. Thank you.